Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the guidelines of flipping a car and making some money. There's a lot of questions that I get in regards to flipping cars. I've been doing it for a few years now, and there's a lot of things that you learn, a lot of ins and outs, that sort of thing. But obviously there's many good ways and many bad ways of flipping cars. So today I'm going to be explaining a lot of the guidelines that go along with it, things to look for, the kind of market you should be focusing on, so on and so forth. So first thing, I would say know your market. There's many different markets, as you'll see. If you YouTube this kind of search, you'll see that there's a lot of other videos that also focus on certain markets, certain cars, that sort of thing. And pretty much in any market there's money to be made. It just depends on how you do it. So I would say definitely know your market, which one you're going to go after. Make that decision first before you do, before you buy your first car. You definitely got to know that. Once you know your market, then you know exactly what kind of cars to look for. What that type of clientele is going to be looking for, and then you can just take proper steps after that as well, and get an idea eventually as far as how much money you could be making. After you buy a vehicle and that sort of thing. It's all about the numbers, no matter what market you're going to be looking into. The next thing is, I would say, are you mechanic savvy? There are a lot of people out there that flip cars, but they don't even touch them. They don't do it. They don't clean them up very much. They don't fix them. They don't do anything. They just buy them a lot of times from another flipper, and then try to just basically sell it for a few $100 more. Personally, I don't flip a car unless I know I can make at least $1,000 in profit, but that's just me. And I went to school to be a tech and that sort of thing, so I got over 10 years of experience in that field. So that also helps me get a better understanding as to what to look for, what do I need to fix, what little things I could skip out on, and still sell the car for a reasonable price, and yet make some good money off of it. So if you're not mechanic savvy, again, you could be like some of the other flippers that just buy a car and then they sell it as it is. Or, a lot of times with a little bit of extra work of fixing a car, you could be making a lot more. So if you're not mechanic savvy and you want to go down that road, then I would say definitely find one. Find a mechanic that is trustworthy, that you can pay a decent amount of money. And obviously, I wouldn't start off with someone like a master tech, for example, that would charge you 50, 60, $70 an hour, right off the bat. So you want to definitely keep your expenses down, and just take it slow to get to know this kind of thing. So as far as looking for one, maybe you can start off with one or two shops that you already go for to get your own vehicle maintained. Maybe talk to some guys and kind of feel them out, and see what they say, and then you can just go from there. See if if they'll agree with you to fix some cars on the side every now and then, and make some money. Obviously it's got to be somebody trustworthy, somebody that knows what they're doing, and on your end, you also have to know what's the, I would say, simplest route that you can take to fixing a car up a bit, and yet still gaining a nice amount of profit out of it. You don't want to necessarily go too far. Like, for example, again, it depends on the market. It definitely depends on the market. But let's say like an engine air filter or cabin air filter or something like that. A lot of times you're not going to want to do those unless the car is like near perfect, and you want to get it just right, and it's selling for a high amount in cash. Let's say in the more or less $10,000 range or something like that, or even higher. Then maybe that's something you could consider. But Other than that, in most cases, little stuff you just want to go ahead and not even worry about it. You want to, focus on major things. For example, in some cases, upholstery work, depending on the car and depending on its value after it's fixed. AC, which is a big thing in many markets, especially down here in Florida. That's like a must-have. Just having working AC could easily gain you at least a few $100 more in profit. Any other leaks, engine oil leaks. That's another thing. A lot of times these people are obviously going to look under the hood, so you want to make sure that it's clean. Some people try to cover them up, by cleaning the engine completely, which is good, for presentation. But sometimes when when people clean under the hood like that, deeply, they're actually covering an oil leak the engine may have a slow oil leak, but it doesn't show after a while of it, running. So that's another thing. Sometimes those are simple, but they're not very expensive. So little oil leaks like that, you may want to get done, especially those visible ones. So that's what I would say as far as in the mechanic side of it. Obviously, if you're already mechanic savvy, then in that case you can actually save a lot of money, just working on the cars on your own, and just keeping it simple, and and making some good money out of them. Research before buying. Definitely research, because this kind of connects with knowing the market. You want to get an idea as to the kind of cars that you're going to be looking for. You're going to want to take at least 2 or 3 different avenues as far as research goes to check on the resale value of these cars. It's kind of like I learned from some of the Kiyosaki books is you make money when you buy, not when you sell, and flipping is pretty much the same thing in that sense, where you don't want to necessarily buy something just because it's cheap. There's got to be more research into that. If a car is really cheap, there could be a couple different reasons as to why. It could have a rebuilt title. It could have a blown head gasket or a blown engine. It could have a bad transmission, whatever. But in general, when you just look at the price, I wouldn't just go base off of the numbers just like that. I would do some research. See if you can get an idea of, okay, what the price is. Maybe you can get it down a few $100, which will help cover for maybe some of the repairs. And then how much is it worth more or less in your market after it's all fixed up, and that sort of thing. So you're gonna have to really understand, and that's what really helps if you're mechanic savvy, or if you have a really good mechanic working with you, is that they can give you an idea of the price on parts. Because the last thing you want to do is just start throwing parts at a car, for no reason, or for trying to fix something. And they're just spending a lot of money for no reason, because parts, depending on what it is, could add up very fast. So definitely research. That's definitely a big one. So you just don't want to bypass that. You don't want to assume anything. Cars are just in some ways, a lot like real estate. You don't want to, you have, like, each car has its own kind of like market per se. Sports cars have their thing, and then you have your 2 doors and your 4 doors, and your SUVs and others, and then you have different price ranges for all those. So those are all different markets. You definitely got to research that kind of stuff, and then a lot of times it's best to also have an idea as to how much it would be to fix a car before you buy it. So if you see a good price on something, then I would say you may want to hurry up and attack it, but at the same time, research to get an idea of all the numbers first, because sometimes when there is a really good deal on the market, there's other people out there doing the same thing. So you gotta kind of be quick about it, and know whether or not to buy the car, and get working on it. So that's another thing. This part I pretty much already went over. Keep repairs simple. It also depends on the market that you're working in. So on higher end cars, these people are a lot of times obviously paying cash, so they're going to be expecting a little bit more, compared to someone buying a car for, let's say, $3,000, where a lot of times, people in that market may or may not be bothered too much about the interior. They're maybe looking something just more on the reliable side with good AC, that sort of thing. Something simple, where someone in a higher market could be looking for a little bit more perfection per se. So they're paying big cash for a reason, so they're going to be expecting more. So that's another. And as far as looking or finding your cars, a lot of different ways. Personally, I usually use either word of mouth or Craigslist, and sometimes OfferUp. OfferUp, not too much, but I look for cars through mainly those three avenues. Of course, there's the auction. There's people that wholesale them. Whatever. There's a lot of different avenues as far as that, but those you could just basically explore to find your cars that way. So it just depends on what works for you and what your connections are. I personally don't use the auction. I've thought about it numerous times, but I have never really went that route. I've been doing just fine through word of mouth and Craigslist and OfferUp, just finding a good car. And plus, with what I focus on, I tend to find plenty. It's just, again, it just depends as far as sometimes I find a good amount of cars within a short amount of time, and some other times it takes a little longer. I tend to be a little bit picky, but with what I look for, with what I buy. But part of that is also because, again, there's a lot of other people doing it, and I like to make sure that I'm going to make good money out of that car. I don't want to just get into something and only make a few $100 off of it. At least to me, that's a waste of time. Others are different. I used to be that way years ago, but definitely not anymore. And the last thing I would say is start with cars that whether you're mechanic savvy or not, just start with the ones and just slowly build from there. Personally, I'll give you an example with my situation is that I usually work on, mostly Hondas and Toyotas. That's just what I like. I tend to be into their culture, and I know a little bit of Japanese actually, but that's another thing. And but those are the cars I like. I like to just focus on that market. They tend to be simpler, usually quick cash in most cases, done and over with, and I'm happy. I use a car that I sold back in March, where found a little bit down south from here a Honda Accord. I think it was a 2003 or 2004. However, it only had, I think, like 50,000 miles on it, and I quickly jumped on it, got it for $1,800. Got it painted because all the clear coat and stuff was coming off. Got it, got the AC working, and after it being online for about 7 to 10 days, sold for $5,300. So I made about $2,000 in profit on that one. Those kind of cars, though, it was an Accord V6 with a leather interior and everything, so it was really nice. But I already knew from knowing those cars and working on them for so long that I would have to paint it because of all the clear coat, all the marks and stuff that were on it. They had to get that out of there, make it look nice, clean it up, and the interior was actually already in really good shape, so that was good. And then obviously, being down here, especially, getting the AC running, and I already had good tires on there that were, I think, less than a year old or something like that, and it just went pretty fast, so that was awesome, and it was already riding really nice. It was a smooth ride for sure. So So yeah, just know your cars. That's I would definitely start off with that. Because again, like I mentioned earlier, all the cars have their own markets and that sort of thing. So just focus on what you know, and then if you decide to, in time and with experience, you can slowly build from there. So that's about it. If you guys have any questions, definitely leave them in the comment section below. I'll try to answer them as fast as I can. This is the first video of many in this channel. I'm going to be covering mostly car stuff, but probably other things that interest me as well. I would say, well, video gaming, maybe, that sort of thing. I read a lot of books, not to be like some of the other people on YouTube, or maybe I would like to be like them, make some good money, that's for damn sure. But maybe some Japanese stuff or whatever, that kind of thing, and that ties in with some of the car stuff anyhow. So definitely like and subscribe to the channel. There'll be more to come. If you guys have any questions, leave them down in the bottom. And if you have any ideas as well as far as what I should cover in my next video, or maybe covering it a little bit more deeply, let me know, and then we'll go from there. Other than that, take care. Sayonara.